your mindset will ultimately determine your success and your happiness in life. And this is especially true when it comes to money. There can be hidden barriers that we aren't even aware of that are keeping us from the exact results we want to create. Today we're going to talk about a few sneaky ways that a lack mindset could potentially be sabotaging the impact and income that you really know you're meant to make. For tuning in today. I am going to share with you a journey I've been on in the last few weeks and some huge realizations that I've had that I hope you can learn from as well. Because, when we go through like the really uncomfortable things in life, that is, for me at least, what makes them worth it is when you can share it and maybe it'll help someone else as well. So I wanted to talk about lack mindset today. And this is a topic I've really been looking at in my own life. I'll share that in a moment. But if the term lack mindset is new to you, if you haven't heard that terminology, let me break down kind of what I mean. And usually this term is used as a contrast to what some might call an abundant mindset. So when I think about what lack means to me in terms of like the way I'm going to talk about it today is feelings of not enough. So either if we're talking about money, there's not enough of it, or sometimes it's even like, I'm not enough. And this mindset of lack can really show up in all different ways. And especially when I'm working on my money mindset, for me at least, the root of wherever my hidden limiting beliefs around money usually lie is this feeling of not enough. So why is it important if we are pursuing a big idea or if we're just on a growth journey? Why is it important to identify, where a lack mindset might be lurking in the shadows, where it might creep in and sabotage your results? And why is it important to learn about yourself and kind of where some of your triggers are in order to reframe them? Well, I think about it like this, and I probably heard this from someone much smarter than me along the way, but this is always the picture that comes to my mind. So if I'm going after a goal, if I'm out to grow my business, if I am pursuing a new big idea, and it's something I want to monetize, maybe there's a financial goal I have for that idea or just for my business. And then, on the other side, my subconscious mind, deep down, the rooted beliefs that are so foundational to how I think, I almost just don't think about them, right? These are just like underlying beliefs that I don't even realize I have. And if those beliefs are in contrast, they completely contrast, they're the opposite of what you say you want, right? Then it'll almost be like two magnets repelling each other. So you can be working as hard as you want toward that goal, but ultimately, those beliefs will determine how successful you are in that endeavor. And even if you, let's say, have a big win, you might notice, and maybe you've seen this in other people around you, that if their belief system doesn't support the growth or the outcome that they've achieved, then they'll find themselves either backpedaling, falling back into old habits, losing money. We could even look at the example of like lottery winners. A lot of lottery winners don't have the foundational beliefs around money and worthiness in order to support a big influx of money. So if we're going to grow and if we're out to make an impact that generates a big income, I believe there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, money in the hands of people who want to do really, really good things in the world is one of the best things that we could want. So if we're going to be in the pursuit of growing a business or a big idea that will monetize, then we have to look at where some hidden beliefs that we may not even be aware of are almost threatening to sabotage our results or prevent us from ever getting there in the first place. I really believe that it's 90% working on your mindset and your habits, and then 10% action that actually results in a successful business. At least that's been my experience with it. And in my business journey, one of the biggest things that I've had to work on is my money mindset. And it started with looking at beliefs where I believe, I would have thoughts like, oh, I can't afford that, or that's too expensive. Like that was the early version of having to work on my money mindset and where some of these sneaky habits were. But I honestly believed that I had grown past having what I am talking about today, like a lack mindset, until I really was looking at my, just my goals for over the next year and where I see, my business growing, or just like my overall financial goals. And I started to look for, and I know this sounds kind of crazy to look for where your own like limiting beliefs are, but I just started to become conscious of where a lack mindset still shows up for me. Because I feel like I had this awareness that I was working toward goals and it felt like I was making things harder on myself than they needed to be. And whenever we feel like that, I think it's really valuable to go and look at where's the belief system, where is that rooted in that it feels harder than it necessarily needs to be. And I was shocked to start noticing how it was almost like this story of lack, of not enough, had changed outfits, and it came back to the party, and it's like, hey, like now wants to mingle with me. I thought I had like really overcome a lot of this, only to realize it kind of changed shape, changed outfit, and then it came back. So I'm going to share with you 3 really sneaky ways that I notice lack mindset likes to rear its ugly head. And I really want to encourage you to not look at it as a bad thing when you notice these thoughts or habits pop up for you, because they do for all of us, right? I'm still on this journey. I've grown so much around this, but I still notice these limiting beliefs creep back in. And there's 3 specific ways that as I started to look for this pattern and look for where maybe there's some, I have to like lift up the rug and sweep underneath it. Maybe there's some old beliefs that I don't want there that I just have to go and address and reframe in order to really move forward powerfully. And the 3 biggest things that I noticed, and I want you to be really honest with yourself and look for whether you look back and see that recently you've been feeling some of these ways, or you just start to pay attention like from this point forward and be ruthless with catching yourself in the act of having, what I would call a lack mindset. And I'm going to give you some tools about how I reframe these as well. Because again, having the thoughts is not a bad thing, but being diligent about reframing them when you notice them is the key. Okay, so the first one is, like I said, I don't catch myself saying things like, oh, I can't afford that, or, shutting down the possibility that something is for me or not with those same thoughts that I used to, saying things are too expensive, etc. But what I noticed is that I would have this thought, which really, if you look, is rooted in lack of, I wish I could. Now you might say, well, what's wrong with that? Like, what's wrong with saying, oh, I wish I could do that? And for me, at least, for what I'm committed to, for where I know I want to go, saying I wish I could isn't very solution-oriented. It's kind of saying like, oh yeah, that'd be so nice. I really wish I could. It may be something that I know is either an investment I want to make, or, a course I want to be a part of, or someone I want to hire for my business. And just saying I wish I could almost kind of like lets my mind off the hook. It doesn't have me get creative or look for a solution. So I'm going to list these out first, then I'm going to tell you how I reframe them. So what I started to notice were all the ways that I would say, oh, I wish I could. Not actually make a plan, to make big moves in my business or to find the way. It was just more of like oh yeah, that'd be nice. I wish I could. Okay, so that was number 1. Sneaky lack mindset. The second one, and this is like not fun to look at within ourselves, but it's so powerful when we're able to shine a light here, is feelings of jealousy or comparison. And if you think about it, sometimes these thoughts are automatic, like you see someone else's success on social media and you have the immediate thought like, oh man, I'm not there yet, or they're so amazing, I don't know if I could achieve that. There's nothing wrong with having the immediate thought. But again, not addressing it, just allowing it to be there and allowing you to feel less than, like you're not enough, is a problem if you're out to achieve really big things. So it's almost based in this, the lack piece of it is that there's not enough to go around. So if I'm jealous of someone else, if I'm comparing myself, it's kind of like saying, I don't believe that there's unlimited opportunity, right? Because I wouldn't have a need to compare. I wouldn't have a need to get jealous if I truly believe in abundance mindset that there is plenty of opportunity to go around. So that was number 2 for me. And then here's the third one. And this has shown up in different ways throughout my journey. It's the fear of outgrowing people, which again is a lack mindset. So it used to show up more like around friendships. I would be afraid of, like, if I really go after these big goals, would people in my life be okay with it? But I noticed it more recently when I felt like I was meant to grow and create bigger programs, create bigger offerings. I had this fear that maybe I was leaving some of my clients behind, some of my customers, people that I love to work with, but I felt like I was stepping into creating maybe a next level offering that they may or may not even be ready for. But what I noticed is I had this fear of like my own growth, which again is a lack mindset, to believe that there's not people who are ready for exactly how I know I'm meant to show up, and that if I, let's say, quote unquote, outgrow some clients, if I'm not working with them anymore, or if they're not ready to step into the new price point that I'm offering, then I'm losing out on something. And so I want you to just hear in all 3 of these examples how they're rooted in lack. They're rooted in there's not enough to go around, I'm not enough, or just fear. So nothing wrong with any of these, but when I started to notice them, I knew that that's like where my real work begins. And the way that I go to work on these beliefs when I notice them show up, because they do, and they do all the time. This is like never gonna end, okay? We're all on this journey, we're always growing, is to reframe. So literally to take the old belief and give it a new spin, something that actually is consistent with where I want to go. So when I catch myself thinking thoughts of like, man, I wish I could do that, or I wish I could be in that mastermind, or I really wish I could XYZ, it's to pause and ask my mind a better question. And the question is, how can I? Now, it doesn't always mean that that big investment is something I'm ready to make at the moment, but notice how asking the question, how can I, immediately puts me into a solution-oriented mindset. Meaning my mind is going to want to fill in the blank. My mind is going to want to answer that question. It's going to stay open to opportunity. Where when we shut it down with a lack mindset of I can't, or I can't afford that, I don't have enough, or even just like, oh, I wish I could, but I'm not willing to do anything about it, your mind doesn't have to go to work. So reframe, I wish I could, or even if you're starting at the level of your lack mindset shows up as, man, that's too expensive, I don't know if I can afford that. Try asking a better question. Just try it on, let me know what happens. Start asking yourself, well, how can I? How could I make that happen? How could I make that investment? How could I hire that coach? Or how could I hire that extra help to free up more time? And just notice if you feel different after asking that better question. So that's number 1. The second thing where I noticed that lack mindset show up around jealousy or comparison is to realize that when we're feeling those feelings, it's not necessarily so what I think what happens in my mind is I start to think of it like I'm not enough, when actually the fact that that person is having that success, or the fact that I'm noticing something really great about them, means that it's possible for me. In fact, I think when I notice greatness in someone else, and the reason it resonates is because the seed of that is in me as well. And that's what I want you to remember. When you're seeing someone else's light, that's not proof of how not good enough you are. That characteristic in them is resonating with you, because that quality exists in you as well. And when you see someone having business success in your same industry, I just want you to realize that the fact that they have been able to create the business that they have means that there is a need for it. And so that's not a reason to think that you shouldn't keep going down that road. It's actually proof that there's such a need for what you want to offer. So that's how I reframe when those thoughts of jealousy or comparison show up. And then around the fear of outgrowing people, whether it's friends or, for me right now, it was more that fear of if I step into offering some bigger offerings that I'll be leaving people behind. And this one is still sometimes kind of tough for me, I'll be honest. But a mentor of mine said this, and I'm really working on taking this to heart, that we're never truly outgrowing people, that they always have full space and ability to grow with us, but that's on them, it's not on us. And so it doesn't mean that if you're on a different growth path, or if you're growing at a different speed than the people around you, it doesn't necessarily mean that we'll completely outgrow them. But it isn't on us to take people along. It's actually on us to pave the way. And that's a little bit easier said than done for me. I still have some work to do around that one. But I really know in my heart that I'm being called to step into this bigger vision. So I would love to hear from you. Are any of these sneaky, sabotaging thoughts around lack showing up in your life? And which one are you going to commit to being hyper aware of and reframing when you notice it? You can connect with us on social media. That's one of my favorite places to connect with our girl gang. You can also, if you're not part of our text mentorship, you can text me, and yes, it's actually me. Some people don't believe that it is, but it's really me that replies to these text messages. You can text the word mentor to 602-536-7829, and you can sign up to receive weekly business and mindset tips. They come directly from me, and if you respond via text, I will actually answer you back. So you can also sign up to be a part of that text girl gang. All the info is in the show notes. But I really encourage you, take this on this week, because if you are committed to making the impact that I know you're meant to make, and that I know you're committed to making, if you listen to this show, then it's not if these thoughts show up, it's when. And just know that, you're not alone in feeling that way. You have support, but it is going to take your diligence to catching them and reframing them when they happen.